Greetings, greetings. Hey, hello, hi, everyone, children of Maria Orsic. On this night, this early morning actually, now, of February 28th, the anniversary of Master Miguel Serrano leaving this world, leaving it without a God, without a teacher. And he is, was, and will always be in the holographic matrix, the man to come, as I pull the cord out of the headphones again. Let us begin with this quote. This night, tonight's reading of the mysteries is dedicated, as Rastas would say, live-acated. It's in honor of this woman right here, Irene Klatt, who is now a great and famous goddess, a master artist, poet, and in her honor, we begin tonight with these words of Miguel Serrano. In the silence of the white peaks grows the fiery lily of eternal love. Right? And we light these candles tonight in Irene's honor. Hail to you, goddess. Hail to Irene Klatt. May we all remember her as we enter the black sun. Right? And let this white candle here represent the restoration of the beautiful and lovely white goddess back into the collective unconscious of what they call white people. And as Maria has always said, anyone who wants to join us is welcome, of all races. This, we tell the history of race, but we are very interested, very accepting, very welcoming of all people, of all races, who will swear an oath to uphold the laws of no force and no fraud ever. And also on those principles, the principles of who, okay, we're going to keep going back to this time after time tonight. Manu to me, okay? Irene Klatt, goddess, is not a universal thing because no one would ever want their teaching ability to operate in magic, manipulate natural energy for good, would never want anything other than the natural flow of the true thank you. As I have told long before I knew she was Maria, the Missouri River goddess said, I'm going to do many things for you. There's a sort of natural give and take in all giving and receiving. She said, even in gifts, be careful, Joseph, of who gives you gifts. Listen for my voice. She said, but, you know, if I do something for you, I don't expect it, but just know there's a natural energy of like, you should do something in response. Not that it's, I expect it. And what she was doing was setting me up, right? She knew there was nothing I could give her. She knew she was watching from Venus from another perspective where I am laying on a bed. And this is all happening in my mind. She's in the real world, going into her meditation, leaving through layers, dimensions of herself, and coming here, right? So you have the context, right? And so she wasn't saying, this was after kind of like a series of jokes of saying, I'm a goddess, and listen, I'm not going to ask you to kill your son. And check this out, my boy, I don't need 10% of anything or anyone's money. She's like, matter of fact, maybe I'll help you get, prosper so that we can do what we need to do. I was like, huh? For real, I was listening to this beautiful little blonde woman standing on the rocks that were going out into the Missouri River. And she is just spewing, giving me her rundown of what was really going on in the moment, right? So it took her a minute to say, Joe, I don't really need anything, and I'm not asking. But when I do something for you, I was like, what could I knew the situation all of a sudden, how powerful she was, and like why she was saying, I don't call myself a goddess, but this is what they mean by the word where we come from, right? And as I was trying to say, like, I would do anything for you, like, you've already helped me so much. And actually, this was the second time that I really talked to her. So I was talking about just the first time her speaking to me. And I valued that because she took a shot and hit the bullseye on Christianity. And this was I wasn't a Christian anymore. I want people to hear me. If you were born in America, born in Europe, no, you're way more Christian automatically than you think. And she was taking a shot at the last remnants, like she would say, of gross, disgusting Christianity. Once you see it, it's a gross, disgusting attitude. And you should be pissed off about who, put that on you. Believe me, when they said that they took prayer out of the schools, they knew that they could now disguise themselves as the fake revolution that the hippies ended up being. Not saying any particular people were fake and that every person involved, but overall, they are the masters of their own, creating their own oppositions, right? And along the way, I had to have a revelation after revelation. I had to have people. I had to embarrass myself. I've talked about it before. The last remnants, I would say some of the last remnants of this terrible brainwashing came out in me when you try to get like reverent about this mushroom ritual. Reverent things happen. They happen inside of you, but there's no need for like a pious attitude. And I had to have that taken out of me because it's gross. It's disgusting. Right? And I say all this to say this is how the goddesses like Irene, they help us. It's such a deep, long, drawn out thing to how we ended up this way, each one of us. But let me tell you, take a step back. And even if your parents taught you it was a lie and it never was true, you were born into the tangible atmosphere that God is a crazy, homicidal maniac that could not quench his wrath, be at peace until he killed his son, which on the flip side doesn't make any sense, somehow makes him not mad about anything that any person's ever done since then. The sins of the whole world forever. And don't argue with me that, oh, that's not what it really says. And that this is what dominates. All right. You may want to be an apologist for the suicidal Yahweh who killed his son. This is a movie. This is a TV series. Don't forget that. This is a stupid fucking myth. Right? That Maria patiently put up with me. And she wanted me to start tonight by saying, Joseph, tell them about how the real Jesus, Lucifer, who is Lu, who is Shiva, who is what? An actual person to me, to Maria, who's here with us now to, or tonight to honor our friend and our teacher, Irene Klatt, right? Maria wanted me to start off by saying, you may think I'm exaggerating, but I was a Rastafarian for 7 years, and I took it so fucking serious. And when it crashed down on me, and I knew it was no longer true, not me. My mind was excited by what I thought was, and it was, a little more truth. I thought it was all of it, was a big wrong assumption. But it physically made me sick. Because you know why? These people behind this Christianity, this banker Christianity, the source is evil. It's against life. It's disgusting, harmful. It is the author, the real person who says, go kill their children. Punish them to the 3rd and 4th generations. I think that comes from Deuteronomy, my nigga. Quote, God punish them to the 3rd and 4th generation. So that'd be your great 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 grandpa, and your child has got a brain tumor, and God tells you it's because what your great 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 grandfather did. he got mad when we tried to tax him 10% and he wouldn't pay. So I was barely hanging on. I was not sleeping. I was in the very worst psychological, physical state I ever have been in. And this was 4 months after leaving Rastafari and coming to Christianity on an assumption, but through a supernatural experience. I was, minutes before this happened, I was quite content to remain a Rastafarian my whole life and move to Ethiopia and live as a farmer, a ganja farmer, right? And it was not my plan. It was not my foresight that I started to feel like something was wrong. And this led to a series of real, at least to me, supernatural things, like being in a small church service kind of thing and hearing literal chorus of, like anyone would say, it sounded like angels, but I know they're not real. Women, a chorus of women. I was audibly hearing them for the whole time we were singing. And things were increasingly happening to me since I left Rastafari. And it was like a give and take. As it pulled this way, it pulled the other way. As far as unhealthy and no sleeping, and I'm reading and studying the Bible like as much as I possibly can. And it just, I had no idea that I was allergic to wheat and other things. There was a lot of lack of knowledge that was playing into this. I'm not, saying it was all, it doesn't matter. It all together worked to just like start to wipe my mind out. And somehow, some way, I'll never forget, because my son was a baby and he was getting sick, and it just totally makes sense. This whole thing, this whole Jesus slaughtered by his father is so just horror movie. But I met this, what turned out to be a Bible study teacher, and we became friends. He was a very real, authentic person. And one day he said, "Would you like a gift from the Holy Spirit?" And he didn't do things like this normally. And he put his hands on me and said, "I release dreams in you." And a week later, I had a dream about someone who never. It's funny. Yesterday I was telling my wife I had a dream about someone I've never met, but in a way I know. But in the dream, I knew her so well, and I can see her face right now, and I'm like, looks familiar, but I don't know her. Same thing. And I was in Israel, and a long dream short, I heard a janitor working in the Catholic Church at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in in whatever, Jerusalem or outside of Jerusalem, or wherever it is. This was a dream. After he laid hands on me and said, that's all he said is, I release dreams. No fancy prayer. A week later, I have this dream. And every bit of my thought energy in this dream was, who is this man? And he said to me, this is who he told me he was. I was the man you heard working in the Catholic Church down there. So he was actually the janitor of the church, not a member whatsoever. He just worked there. He cleaned the toilets, right? And my first thought is, this is Jesus Christ. I know. He looked like the most typical image of Jesus in my mind. I can tell you, I can see it right now in my mind. I can tell you exactly. He had long, very nicely brushed out, slightly wavy, very dark brown hair past his shoulders, parted kind of in the middle. He had on a maroon, burgundy-ish and gray Oxford shirt on, like button-up shirt, you know. And it was untucked, and he had like gray sort of Dickies work pants on. So a sort of older looking Oxford work shirt, but it was strangely, his mind touched mine, was like, take note of the colors. Like dark burgundy, dark burgundy and gray. I was like, this was officially the most magical dream I had, even the one that Maria, took me to outer space where people can't exist. I learned that for sure. I was like, it's not real out here. And she was like, oh, it's real, but it's not what they told you. I was like, it's crazy. Are these models? I was like, are these models? They're not that big. She's like, it's all creative, isn't it? Right? So the dream, I let who I thought was Jesus, he knocked at the door, like the scripture. I stand at the door and knock. I let him in. I didn't even ask who he was. I just said, what's up, brother? He said, I'm the dude from down in the church. I work down. I said, come in. By just the look of him, and I'd say he was strangely 30 years old, just like everyone else on Venus. He had that, like, I'm not real young, but he looked young. I say 30, but the skin, to me, in 2026 looks, in the early, anyway. I sat down on a hotel bed, and he sat in a chair, and he pulled out one of those little Bibles that are just the New Testament. That sometimes you see people giving away free, or we used to in the 80s. And it was, my inner voice was going, who is this man? Like, what? You work in the church? And just, I had never been so psychically overwhelmed by like some kind of energy that I couldn't think straight. All I could hear was like my inner voice going, Who is he? Who is this dude? Like, what is happening? And he pulled up a little Bible. It's very interesting because his mind met mine. He said, look at the corner of the page. Mark, I think it's like 15 or 16. You'll know this verse. People who know the Bible. And when I telepathically heard that, I freaked out. So I looked at him and he looked straight in my eyes, and I heard his voice again telepathically in my mind. And he said, Joseph, I'm wearing 2 crosses. He had a necklace cross and a literal, like, old lady pin cross on his Oxford shirt pocket. And he said, the big cross is for me, the little cross is for you. They represent Armageddon. He said, but listen, Joseph, I mean it personal in your life. A Armageddon is coming in your life. He said, but listen, the reason I'm here is because your life will parallel the real world Armageddon that will take place in this land where you're at right now. A war will begin here that will end the whole world. And at the same time, he's reading from the book of Mark as he's telepathically speaking to me about Armageddon. And suddenly I sort of like snap out of it, and he looks right at me again, right in the eyes, and he said, Joseph, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. And it was like the religious, and that of King Herod. I was like, the political. And he was like, telepathically, again, we went off, and he was like, I'm not really saying beware, like be scared. I'm saying be aware that it's been eaten by the yeast. The real thing has been eaten, and you have only waste that is left, right? And I started going, who is this man? In my mind so loud that I woke up, sitting up in my bed, totally sitting up like this, with my hands down, just yelling, who is this man? Who are you? I mean, I was up. I had never done that ever in my entire life. Sat up while I was still sleeping and was talking out loud that woke me up. And I am not playing. I was sitting up and I jumped up off the bed without like just getting off the bed. I jumped, like hopped from a sitting, hopped to my feet off the bed and started running. I didn't know what I was there. I was going, there's a tangible feeling. I could, like I was running around the room through this vibration. Now you know why I was such a Christian, but check this out. Who is this man? Who is this man? He didn't say, did he? Because he had a Bible, because he read a quote from Jesus, made me think he was Jesus. What's crazy is this true self tricked me. And just the thought of this dream and the craziness of this dream and the thought of who is this man literally lifted me out of the sickness, the depression. I got a different job. And from that moment on, matter of fact, right after that, me and my wife got legally married, which is stupid, but it was proof that, something had changed. We don't need the government to marry us, but it was just a thing in my life that we had been together for 10 years or 9 years. And, okay, check this out. So who is this man? On May 5th, 2024, I was told by a 10-foot dude, I'm that man. Right? And we'll be right back with the reading from Miguel Serrano's The Mysteries.
Hail, my sister, feel the breeze of time, floating deep in dreams where dimensions rhyme. Your essence sparkles like the stars above. In every heartbeat I can feel your love. Your spirit guides my way, with power from the earth to sway. Your essence makes us free in every song we sing. With the Ozark room, let the healing begin. In a dance of light, where spirits flutter by, we lift our hearts together like eagles in the sky. Supernatural journeys through the cosmic night, channeling the strength, illuminating light. New whispered tales of our bonds, so divine. 20 years in a dream, forever intertwined. Warriors with wisdom deep and true. Your essence makes us free in every song we sing. With the Ozark room, let the healing begin. In a dance of light, where spirits flutter by, we lift our hearts together like eagles in the sky. So bless this moment, let the rhythms flow. Dear sister, let your essence glow.